So,
All right. So what are we going to do
we
to
got
get
paid.
this? Yeah. So
Right.
thankfully, Steve put in his money into escrow. I've added him as a viewer on the Wise account, so you can see where the money is.
Yep.
Rex will add once he gives me his account details, I'll add him as a viewer too. Then everyone can see where the money's at, what it's doing, who's in charge of it. And it's got 3 months to go until that packet becomes due and the money is released. Now, playing catch up here, do we have an idea that QA could actually pass?
No, I don't think so. But the
Right, well, we better get there.
caveat is for the stream, the last 4 days of COVID. So my mind has not been exactly, as sharp as it is. But will I share my screen for these notes, or what's the best thing
I
to
don't
do
think
here?
it's just you got the doc that I sent you, right?
Well, yes, but that was just a cut and paste, basically, of the text that I sent you, right? Roughly.
That's fine. Have you got more notes?
No, I haven't done anything since then. No.
Okay, so let's
Yes.
just you and I will use that doc, and let's just start rolling through your comments.
Yeah. So let's start with R24 IPFS ORM. Now, so from the QA side, the very highest level, the QA should be there saying, remember the information gradient thing that I've been going on about. So the buyer has an information gradient in that it knows lots about the business, and the doer has a lot of information about how to do it. And what we need to do is to level those up to get something that's reasonable that both understand what's going on. So straight off the back, IPFS ORM. It's like what's the objective? If everything that goes below that works, what's the benefit to the buyer, and why should the buyer care? Sorry. And before we go further, one up from that one, I think I mentioned it in the notes, is this is the first time we've really properly gone through QA. So we've kind of got at the back of our head is, what does QA care about? And if I'm being too pedantic and so on, then we should note that.
So in the background, where would I title what the benefit is? Like, would it be in a section or would it be?
Well, remember, we're talking about the request. So the request really should come from the.
Okay. Can we start with the idea first, because it was the idea that got funded.
Yep. Sure.
Request we can come back around to. And separately, we have formed a deal object here between the funder, the
Correct.
QA, well, soon hopefully to be the QA, and the doer. So I think that under live, I need to make a new folder called deals. Right,
yes,
and I need to write a document that describes the details of the deal, which is in that PDF. It would include at a minimum that PDF of the details that I sent round between Rex and Steve, and that'll at least document that, okay, here's the terms that everyone agreed to. There's a considerable amount of trust from each side, but there are terms.
So was that PDF? Remind me if, or was I copied? I don't know, because I've been out a bit.
Yeah.
The PDF you just talked about.
Let me resend it. Let me send it to you so that you have it for sure. and then I will also reference it or commit it in the deal document. So I would just say that I would call it under the deals folder, it would be I21 deal.
Okay.
Sending you an email now.
Yeah.
That is called deal terms. I will need to anonymize this data to remove names and to protect the innocent.
Of course. Yeah. And just to be polite, to be honest.
To be straight up polite, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll wait on that coming through.
And all right, so I'll make a deal object, and it will basically have just the basic parameters that I think a deal should have, which is amount, time, who the QA is, who the doer is if it's targeted at a doer, and who the funder is, and the status of that deal, as in paid or not paid, because the escrow holder.
Right. Okay.
The escrow holder is an actor that we never actually called out in our model, but the escrow holder is the
no, we did. That's a pool. The pool is the escrow.
That's not a pool. The escrow holder is the one that backs the currency.
Okay.
The pool is a mechanical instrument that relies upon the values that it reports in its ledger to be backed by something, because we don't have.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So what's the takes it to a bank account? Yeah. Because a pool is set of rules. It's a club.
Yeah, club. Right. But there's a treasurer or someone that holds the money and honors the ledger, and that's an actor that is actually an actor, and we didn't model them.
Oh, that's an excellent point. Shit, how did we miss that one? Okay.
It's hard, man. Yeah. So we got to model the treasury.
Yeah. Okay. So can I? So a deal consists of everyone agrees to the DPL, correct? I'm not correct.
Yes, no? Man, nah. Normally, yes. But we don't have the DPL.
Yes, but we're amongst friends at the moment, so.
Okay, so right now the Dreamcatcher public license is you need to be mates, and all please get along.
At the moment, yeah, and we'll get it turned into legalese, and they'll probably make it 4 or 5 times as long. But there is an object called DPL.
Yep.
So is a DPL a collection of the DPL that everyone has agreed to, modules which can be either created or pulled off the shelf, and then the contract, which I think is what you're talking about in terms of.
We agreed that contract was going to be called deal.
Right, but what I would suggest, well, no, I'm not going to suggest that because I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. There's 3 things here. Everyone agrees to the DPL, even though we don't have it in legalese. Modules that you include, say, an NDA, is the obvious one, and then there's what we've been calling a contract in the dictionary at the moment. Contract, which is the actual stuff.
Yeah, contract got renamed to deal, right? That's what you and I agreed on that.
Yeah, but the overall deal, what I'm saying is, only holds together if those 3 things are together. So you could have, for example, what we're calling the deal. The contract refers to we're agreeing. Well, actually, this is how it is defined at the moment. The contract defines which modules are agreed on, and that the DPL is enforced. So actually, the contract is the deal. You're right, but it's those 3 together that if you're to go to a court of law, you'd have to present.
Yeah, the deal, having a deal in place relies upon the DPL plus the modules, and the deal can be thought of as an instance of a particular module, which is more likely to be one-off than not.
Well, the deal is naturally going to be one-off unless it's an open offer. But even if it's an open offer,
no. Like a lot of a deal would be reused often, I imagine, with simply different parameters.
It could be, or it may not be. That's not fundamental. The fundamental thing is
anyway. The thing I want to make is I want to make a markdown document called I21 deal in a deal folder. So we'll have requests, ideas, and deals. Is that the right place to put it?
Wait a second. I21. Let me just get. I've got get up here. So what? I21 deals. No, because this is actually gnarly, isn't it?
It doesn't belong in requests. It doesn't belong in ideas.
No, it doesn't. It belongs in something else.
It's very much. I think that what I should be doing is making a folder called deals, making this particular deal as a markdown doc in there. So this would be a deal for the I20. It'll be like I21 deal 1.
Yeah. And it references
I21.
A deal should entirely be the names of the signatories and references to other documents, either the DPL or modules, or an idea or request. It should the deal itself should be real lightweight. It should reference everything else.
All right, so I'll make that, and then once I've made that first version, then we can get some. It'll give us a bit more to talk about between the two of us, between that prototype. I'll put it in the dust folder for now before putting it in the real pool.
Yeah. Do you agree with what I'm saying though? Is that a deal inside a deals folder should basically be a bunch of links plus the people involved. And actually, once the people involved are members, there'll be links to members. So a deal is essentially a bunch of links. So
it's a bunch of links plus conditions.
The conditions should be inside of the conditions, yes, because you've got the request and the idea, and then you need to come to some kind of middle ground on, okay, so you got this request, this is how we're going to do it. You go backwards and forward. Yes, okay, yep, agreed. Okay. So, yep. Yeah. This is interesting, actually. We're getting into the the metal's really spinning now. Okay, all right. So the deal, you're going to create a deal folder and put this first deal in it, and it will necessarily link to DPL. Any module, well, the only module we've got that's extant, and none of these are not legally written, but the only module that we've got is about.
But I'll make the first one. I'll make the first one. I'll pass it back to you. You can add in the bits that you see are missing. I need to get in the details from my side, which are the amount, the people, and the length of time, plus the conditions that were sent in the document that I emailed you. And then you can add the other types of connections that you need in there.
Yeah, cool. So I'll do the connections, and also what I'll do is I'll run this past legally my new best friend from Hong Kong. Oh, not mentioned because he hasn't given permission to have his name put up there. But the lawyer guy I've been talking about. Okay, good. All right. So that's the first one. Now, so that gives us the because there's two things, isn't it? Being inside of a pool requires the QA. QA gives you a certain amount of confidence, but then you still need the earthing event, which is what we've been talking about there. Now, the QA piece is what. Sorry, it's not the best of English that I put in on that text that I sent, and you've put into QA of R24 and I21 Google Doc. But the are we at the well? Sorry, before going to this, is there anything else to go through on the legal wrapper before we go into actually the QA? Because what we're talking about here is the QA is now considering putting this into the pool, and as soon as it's in the pool, then you've got to abide by the rules of the club of that pool, and our pool is transparent and fair. Okay, so so the very first thing on R24, it seemed to be solutioneering.
Can we focus on the idea? Because the idea needs to be passed because there's money flowing, money's moving. The request doesn't have money moving.
Right. So on I21, the idea needs to well, you can read it what I've said. The information gradient seems to be quite high. There's no links to definitions. There's no links to what IPLD is. So as a buyer, I'm sitting there going, IPLD sounds great. Do I need 4 of them or 10 of them? You know, no idea. IPLD scheme was another one. So that was the biggest one, actually.
Okay, so on that general theme, which and I'm going to include in here things like always wrap your dependencies. You know, you're asking like why, or
well, to be if I can be more clear, anytime you use a term, we need to ground that in something.
Yeah, this is not a term. That I'm talking about a concept that you made, that you pointed out, but somehow I can't find it. Did you edit this document?
No, I haven't. Not at all. Generally, what you're, I've got the original text here. So, what were you talking about?
Give me just 30 seconds, and I'll be able to say for sure.
Sure.
No, sorry, I think I'm just talking smack.
Probably not, because it sounded like something that you'd had on your mind. Let me have a look at the original because I've not edited this at all. But let me look at my original notes. So, give me the gist of the topic that you're looking for.
Well, it's things like how much. What does like bullet 6? Oh, that's why I couldn't find it, because you named it by bullet 6, but actually the text of bullet 6 was always wrap your dependencies. So
Right.
yep. Yeah. So that's where I got confused. I've also made a note to replace all bullet points with numbers so that we can actually reference the documents in an easy way.
Can I suggest on that one, actually, it sounds like a bit of a buggeration, but paragraphs also, numbering paragraphs is a lot easier when you're talking backwards and forwards.
Yeah, but we can't do that because that's too hard to keep in check.
No. This is something QA could do.
Now, each paragraph in the Markdown doc has a link. So if you need to reference it, you can actually pull up the URL of the paragraph. So that's effectively a way to reference.
Okay. All right.
You just need a way to, as QA, to be able to strongly reference a paragraph. You get that because each paragraph has a link, so you get the same thing without the overhead.
Agree.
But bullet points are just a killer, because it's like, well, bullet points should have a number, and Markdown does the numbering automatically for you. There's really no excuse for putting bullet points in a document. I forgot
exactly.
that.
It just saves everyone a lot of time.
Yeah. Okay, so just to sort of try and wrap up the whole concept of, it feels like you're calling out information gradient, and you're saying things like should always wrap your dependencies. As a buyer, why should I? What's that going to save me? The danger here is that you are assuming an ignorant buyer. And the problem we are up against is, an idea is supposed to be the minimum amount of information required so that an efficient innovation process can take place. Too much info and we drown, not enough and we get the wrong thing.
I agree with that last thing you said. I disagree with what the previous thing you said just before that.
Assuming an ignorant buyer.
Yes. What does it add saying upstream change management, always wrap your libraries? That sounds like always put your pants on before your trousers. It's like, what does it add?
Pants and trousers the same thing?
Oh shit, yeah. Right. Always put your trousers. Oh fucking hell.
Put your trousers on.
Okay, right. Pants are underwear. Trousers are what you have on your legs, right? It's it's like, isn't that a given? Isn't that a given?
Oh, like you're saying the opposite, that's so obvious
it's
that it shouldn't be in there.
Yeah. Because
okay. Well, that's I don't think that is assumed often. Like, a lot of programs don't wrap their dependencies, but it's one of those things that everyone says, oh yeah, always wear fresh undies. But does everyone? Right. Like, if it's wash day and stuff?
So as QA, so we've got two sides of the QA. So the QA is going to go, right, have you put on your undies on after your oh god, it's a terrible analogy because of the.
No, look, I mean, like the idea of scope, okay, because Rex put this in there as just sort of saying background as to why and what are the limits of this idea. Like,
that is that's exactly it. But now here's a kind of step up back into Dreamcatcher kind of rules. I don't think, I would argue that we don't want to be giving lines like that cannot be checked off by QA at the end.
You got a thing about checklists, right? Okay, so this is the even deeper problem. You want a checklist. The checklist is actually given in excruciating detail by the fact that this idea is not complete until it is consumed by the current interpulse code base and works. Okay, now that's a highly rigorous test. Like that's stronger than any checklist. And yet how would we express that in this idea, right? Like all these concepts are the scope is making sure that the intellectual aspirations are headed in the right direction. The final test is, does it integrate with the existing code base? Does it give us our upstream change management? Does it give us our schema change management, encryption, schema checking? Is it an interface that's abstracted away to IPFS? And do we have a good developer interface? Those things are...
Yeah, exactly it. Exactly it.
Right.
So if you wrap those...
in the context of being consumed by the higher the code base, the blockchain code base that we're making.
Yeah, exactly. So as a buyer, I'd be looking, say, why the fuck should I care about any of this? You know, you young guys with your IPLDs and your, you know, multiple content
and your wrapped library.
So why would I care about that? You know, write down what am I going to get out the end of this, and this is almost like your no, not you. Sorry, this list. I'll be more specific. Upstream change management. Always wrap your libraries. Sounds like always eat your vegetables.
Okay, like, what do you want it? Can you give me an example of what you want it to be?
I don't want it to be there at all.
But that's an important feature. The decoupling of the dependencies that we have is something that has to be there. You could get away with supplying a solution that met the other 5 points, but didn't do that wrapping of the dependencies, and I might still accept it, but
I get
not
that. I get that, but as an analogy, okay. So if I had a request, I want someone to win the 100-meter sprint at the Olympics, and the idea was, okay, so here's the training regime. Always eat your greens would be appropriate at that point, but in this case, upstream change management, unless you'd argue that this is really necessary, what I'd want then is to have a checkpoint saying, how do I tell at the other end as QA that you've always wrapped your
how as QA, to reframe the statement, is how as QA would I know that the library had been wrapped and that the upstream change management was controlled?
Right. Because it's always wrap your libraries. It's like wrap them in tinfoil. You know,
to help me along, then, do you tell me some more detailed problems that you have with bullet point number 4, encryption?
Give me a sec. There's a kind of while I'm looking for this, there's a wider point which is encryption. It's what we want is QA to be like a judge, right? And interpret, but Where's bullet 4? So I'm looking at my notes, not your bullets. Bullet 4. Okay, I'm not actually commented on bullet 4.
Yeah, so what I'm asking you is, you got comments about eat your greens. Can you think of some similar types of comments? Like, does that bullet 4 pass your test, or is there something that you would say differently there?
Right. So this is a new thing I've not commented on. So encrypting items stored into IPFS before hashing them. What I would want that is to be reframed as you don't even need to name the encryption, but you need to name a success criteria for it. So yes, sure, this is the scope. Now, before going any further, I know we've got the scope, the motivation, and the examples. We'll go into the examples in a second. But the scope I'm counting as the work to be done. This is what's happening. Yeah. So on
Yeah,
that
but
bullet point,
the trouble is it isn't a checklist like yes or no.
no, because the QA is going to be a reasonable arbiter. It's not one of these arseholes who just go, yes, you've successfully
The QA is not an arbiter.
Exactly.
No, it's not an arbiter. You said it was an arbiter.
Oh, sorry, I misspoke. No, the QA is looking at the quality of the agreement, right? So on number 4, I would say encrypting items stored into IPFS for hashing them. The reason I didn't comment on that on my comments is I thought that was perfectly reasonable.
Okay, all right. So it's okay. So I've reworded upstream change management to be followed by the text decoupling the IPFS libraries from their consumption to allow them to change freely without requiring the consuming code base to change. Is that better?
That's much better. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. So I'll leave it at that. I was just worried that it was the whole concept was off. So scope is there. I guess you could make it a checklist, but the fact is that if you only just passed, it would not be a pass of the overall thing.
Can I step back from a previous position saying it was a checklist? This is the QA is not a tick box exercise. It's a reasonable judgment that what's being done is correct. It's not a checklist.
Okay.
So
I guess what I also got to do is I'm making a list of things that I have to do up the top, and one of them is to reference the that it needs to be able to be consumed by the Interpol code base as one of the checks, and then I also need to say that it needs to start from the existing implementation, because there's a the fact that there is a prototype built already, it's much more information dense to say, here's the prototype, here's the scope, right? Like here's the fucking lines of code running, all right? And now here's the scope of the sort of the high level intelligent things that we want to change about it, not the checklist things, I don't even know what you call those types of things, but the like qualities of the solution. It's like, do the same thing here, but do it better in these ways.
Yes, yes, and that's actually you've just expressed something that I expressed poorly, and you did a better job when I was talking about uh, links and definitions. You don't need to redefine everything. You don't need a
Yeah.
dictionary necessarily, but what you do need is saying in this situation when I'm using this term, link off to something else and saying that's what I'm thinking about. It's
All right.
honesty.
Okay.
It's
All
not.
right. I'll at least add links to the things that are acronyms.
Yep.
But I will definitely add the place where we reference the existing code base.
Yeah. And if there's a if the link to the if the link if you have an acronym or even take lifecycle management, that could mean anything. Well, it could mean many things. If you link off, then listing the delta, if there is a delta, is going to be very useful, or it's going to be required. So lifecycle management could mean lifecycle management over, um, you know, uh, uh, 20 years of versions or one version. It could mean it
Okay,
could
so
mean
here's an example of that level of specification
Mhm.
could take an inefficient amount of time when
Yes, yeah. No, I agree with
when
that.
right, because part of what we learned working in the USSR was that
Yeah,
the what we were trying to do was the smallest amount of specification for the maximum amount of value back, right? That
right.
was the challenge. And
Yeah,
the one of the many lessons we learned was that starting with a little bit of spec and getting a little bit of value back and then correcting it was 1,000 times more efficient than
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
spec it up front.
yeah. I absolutely agree with that. And uh, I hate over specking because over specking
Right.
ends up in the contract and then someone in the corner. However, what I'm pointing out is um, back to he who should not be named, defining so that everyone knows is really important.
Okay, so
So
when you're saying you were talking about life cycle management.
yeah, so well, that's perhaps that's just because it's in the middle of the screen at the moment. But let's take that as a thing. Cycle management, a simple link out to if anyone cares. Here's what we mean by life cycle management. What you're saying is, if you want to dive deeper into this, this is what we're talking about.
I don't I
We're not
don't
talking.
want I don't want that because I don't want to specify what I mean by life cycle management because I really don't mean much at all.
So why put
Like
it in? Take it out.
I'm not sure I could find a definition that means what I mean it to mean in that sentence, and yet I'm not sure that it wouldn't be understood. You
Okay,
know what I
let
mean?
me
Like
let me try that.
it's like a saying, like often as possible. Like, have you ever tried to explain a saying that you say every day to someone who's got English as their second language, and you're like,
Yeah.
uh, I don't know how to explain it to you because that's what we say all the time, and no one ever asks. And so,
Right.
and
Okay.
and
Right.
then they're
So,
like, "Can you send me a link about Dower?" And I'm like,
well, yeah, yeah. Okay. So
can
I'm
I?
coming
Like,
right back.
can I send you a link on
I'm
that?
I'm
Or,
I'm, I'm going. I remember this is the first time we've done this in well, in anger, but in
No, it's
with
pretty in anger because we need to get this across the line quick because
Right.
there's money in the
I'm-
bank.
I'm quoting I21 scope bullet 1, developer interface, providing an interface for CID and lifecycle management, preferably one that hides these concepts as often as possible. Now,
Okay, I can modify lifecycle management.
well, can you delete it? Can you delete lifecycle
No,
management?
you can't delete it because it means something in this context.
So what does it mean?
Give me a second to try and.
I'm sorry to be an arse, but you know.
You're not sorry
Oh
to
no,
be an ass. You're always an ass.
yes.
Like
I really
you
enjoy.
feel like I'm sorry for who I am. I'm sorry.
Really
I'm sorry
enjoy being
I
a
was born in Scotland. For CID. Okay, for managing CIDs and iteration on the relationships between the data they represent, whilst preferably hiding both these concepts as often as possible.
Right. I've got 2 points on that one, but can I have a quick piss first? Thank you. Sorry, I know we're streaming, but yeah.
Now you really love streaming. Okay. See you soon.
I thought I'd just add this to the stream. Dead mouse.
That's horrible.
About 3 times a day. You want the dead mouse? I'm still student with them.
Oh, what's the dead mouse? What?
On the plus side, we don't have any problems with vermin. Right. So I would pick now. Again, what we're trying to do at the meta level here is to figure out what QA should give a shit about. Preferably, sorry, you read out the your scope bullet 1 rewrite.
I'm going to put it in the chat for you.
Which chat feed?
One
Discourse.
in this call here.
Okay. Okay. An interface for managing CIDs. Managing iterations of the relationships between the data that we have sent most, probably hiding. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah.
The thing that we're gonna like, I know what Rex meant. He knows what he meant. We don't know the words to describe it. We know it when we see it. But the main sort of thing that's not obvious when you read this idea is that down the bottom, where we have an API example, and now I will send you a link. I will send you a link to the paragraph, because we don't do paragraph numbering, we have links instead. It's titled API example, and what you and I are trying to study here is the information exchange between me and Rex, and now me and you, and as a means of
go on.
As a means of trying to hone the relationship, or the amount of information that we need to get from people, so that we can provide an effective increase in quality.
Precisely. I mean,
too much kills it, because now the overhead of specifying,
which is why I came about. Yep. But too little ends up in contracts.
Well, it ends up in fights, disputes, angry people, people not getting paid. So, all that stuff's bad, right? But it's a good feeling from all parties when you feel like the other side has passed the Turing test, right? Now, I can't say exactly what I'm thinking because it's a stream, but there are certain classes of outsourced developer that when I speak to them, I do not feel like they have passed the Turing test. They have done exactly what I asked. They did it on time, but it's not. I didn't ask for that. I want them to think a bit more about what I'm trying to actually get done, and I want them to.
What's the old term? It's you've done exactly what I asked for, but it's not what I meant.
Exactly, right. And that's actually what I expect of an invention machine. I don't want what I asked for. I want what I would have done for me if I just knew how to think about it a bit more.
Which is why exactly for the stream. I don't know if this is going to come up on the stream, but I'm going to read it out anyway. Developer interface, providing an interface for managing CIDs and managing interactions on the relationships between the data they represent, most preferably hiding both these concepts as often as possible. Now, the two things that you could, if you're a lawyer, you'd pick up as preferably, preferable by who, and as often as possible. Really,
if you were a lawyer, well, the reason why it's preferable is because I'm asking for two competing things that a solution has to balance. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. I cannot specify it concretely because there's a reason why. I mean, at some point you're going to have to expose those concepts so they can be dealt with. But ideally, preferably, they'd be hidden where possible, as much as possible.
Right. So as QA, what I'd be reading in that is there's going to be a reasonable balance
Yeah.
on
Right. I'm looking
yeah.
for intelligence from the QA to, when they assess it, be like, did this solution try and do the preferablies, and did it make
Right.
good sort of call outs? And as the specifier, I'm trying to not lock myself into something I can't do.
Right, exactly. So well let's dig into that for like 1 minute. So what the QA is saying there, sorry, you were saying
The thing I was trying to say, and why I sent that API example link over, is that what's not obvious here is that Rex and I went back multiple times over multiple days to arrive at this API example. Now, the API example represents a key component of the solution proposal because we both looked at that example and said to ourselves, this meets all of the scope that was laid out. We can see how it would meet the motivation. It draws on elements from the examples that were provided. Like, that is a dense piece of information. It's not obvious how much communication took place to form that. But to me, that API example really nails down what the idea specifies.
by API example, that is the link that you just sent.
Yeah.
Just to be sure. Okay, so QA is the thing we're really talking about here, because you guys could just go ahead and do this, right? You've got a buyer who trusts you, knows you, you can do it. You know you got the skill, and it'll get done. So
but
actually,
we want to do the exercise of, look, we have been sloppy. We took some shortcuts. I think that the document Rex produced was extremely good, but it is still one that is produced in the comfort of having trust and mutual understanding.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And what we're trying to do is to get middle ground between the whole legalese thing, where you have to produce a stack of docs, you think, or just trust that the guys are going to get on with it, and then $120,000 later, you don't get what you want. So what we're trying to do is get the middle ground for that one. That API example, I think, is a good one. I think it's almost like the examples are the things that you can get your teeth into. The scoping language is the language that gets more fuzzy.
It's
so that API example, like you notice in my notes, it's like yeah, cool, it's good. The stuff that I'm picking up on is linking to your definitions. Sorry, not you. Linking to definitions. Linking to actually how does the buyer, and we haven't gone into the request, the given and request, how does the buyer have some comfort that the idea given through a QA, the QA is going to have to look at a request and an idea and say, yeah, okay, that's worth a go. That's worth that escrow. That's the thing we're trying to do.
Wait, no. The QA is never going to say value. QA doesn't do valuation.
That's not what I said, though. No. It's saying that there's been a request here, and there's been an idea here, and there's a reasonable expectation that should that idea be executed as defined, that's going to meet that request, and then the buyer has that escrow, whatever it is. The QA releases the escrow. The QA releases the escrow by looking at the request and the idea and what's produced. Yeah.
No. This idea could have been put in isolation and funded directly.
That doesn't change anything, as I said.
Well,
I'm going to shut up. Listen to what you're about to say, because
QA doesn't. When work comes in to fulfill this idea, the escrow was put against the idea, not against the request. And so the escrow is released if the supplied work matches the idea. It's because the funder chose to fund the idea, not the request.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. That's a more nuanced way of putting it. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, I agree.
Right. So how, like, the thing is, the scoping, there's an element of relaxation that we can draw upon, which is the take it or leave it aspect of a market. It's like these contracts, like, they get onerously detailed because that people don't really have another option, or they can't sort of truck it around to different places. They haven't broken it down into pieces enough where the pieces can be sent to different places. And then you end up with crazy stuff like a software completion agreement to try and force someone to do something that no one knows what they want enough.
On a website, I had a 90-page contract that actually took longer to go through than building the website.
Right? Like the actual, yeah. Okay, so how do we hit a balance here? Like this API example is like, Rex and I went through this and we're like, this meets everything laid out in this scope doc.
Well, I think I put it all in the notes, so let me go through the notes, because you see that there aren't actually many pickups. So I'm just going to go to I21 pickups, and we haven't talked about R24. So I21, the big overall was the information gradient. So if I was on the buyer side, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be able to hand this off. Say if I was, thinking I'm really nervous. This is like $1 million worth, and my company's going to go under if it doesn't work. And there's a whole bunch of terms. I want to be able to hand it off to someone for $5,000, saying, check out the terms. By terms, I mean definitions. Does this all make sense? Does it hang together? Does IPFS actually mean what they say it means, or is it?
Yeah. Okay. So why are you what IPFS means, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like QA is you and me. You know what it means. Rex knows what it means. Why do you care what the buyer wants this thing to say? Like their form of checking this.
That's a brilliant point. That's a brilliant point.
Right.
So what
their
they
form
could do
of performing QA is to not pay. Like if they don't like something, they just won't pay for it.
Mm-hmm. No, sorry. I went over there when you said something really interesting. Repeat all after last 20 seconds.
If QA knows what you mean, and the idea proposer knows what you mean, and the worker knows what you mean, do you really need the link? Certainly, do you need the link for the buyer's sake? If the buyer doesn't know something, they will not pay. And so if they have already agreed to pay, it means that they're okay with everything that's in there. QA only needs to have enough understanding to pass it.
Perfect. So, well, how about this? What a function of QA could be is to read through this and say, okay, so you said IPFS. I'm imposing a definition of this IPFS that you've talked about. And here's what the important thing is.
I agree with you that there should be a link to it. All right. I just don't agree that that's QA's job to put it in there. I don't agree that QA should block something going through when everyone at the table knows what it means. We're not.
Okay.
You cannot fall into the trap of trying to write these things for people who don't exist or for people who aren't the target audience. The target audience of this document, I21, is Rex as a doer, you and me as the QA. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got the buyer as well.
It wasn't for the buyer.
Well, the buyers put money against escrow against this idea.
Yeah, but the idea only had to be good enough to convince them to pay the money. The document wasn't for the buyer. The document was for QA to be satisfied that work done could be checked off against it.
No. The QA allows an idea to go into a pool.
Yeah.
That pool has a reputation that allows buyers to effectively outsource thinking.
Yep.
Now, if it was just between the doer and the pool, and IPFS actually meant something completely different, maybe it refers to a Mars rover, who knows, then the buyer would lose confidence in the reputation of that pool.
That would be a job for the moderator to impose that kind of a stipulation.
But then, sorry, we don't have a moderator. We have arbitrators and we have QA. And actually,
moderator's an actor. The pool, I think we called it pool owner. Sorry.
Oh yes, is the owner. Yes. Sorry, definitions.
My point is that QA's job is quality and improved understanding. It's not a salesperson. QA is not there to say, well, the buyer wouldn't put money against it. It's not for QA to say that. QA is there to simply be able to say, I can read this document, and if you provided me an asset that you said met solved this or delivered on this idea, I would be able to say clearly that it did or it didn't. And I would be able to say that the result that you produced was an increase in quality.
Hello.
Please, can I interrupt?
Yes, but you're live streaming to the entire world here, so and you're still in your dressing gown.
He's passed everything.
Oh, Duncan's exam results.
He's passed everything. His best result was English literature, which was an A. The rest are low A's, high B's. His poorest was chemistry.
Okay.
Which was a high C.
Yeah, chemistry doesn't count. Physics is the only thing that counts.
He's on track for his A levels, and he's on track for uni. Oh. Get in, my boy! Happy mom!
You realize that's going to be forever now available to anyone who wants to,
Nobody knows his name.
Yeah, but, on this video at 1 hour, 5 minutes. Anyway, something like that. Exam results out for Duncan.
Cool.
Right. Yes. I agree. Now, the big thing is, right, of all the pickups Well, let's
As a-
let's
as an author looking to get my ideas funded, I
yeah,
would put those links in. Those links should be there,
yeah.
but it's not for QA to block it because of that. If QA understands what those words mean.
That's interesting. And actually, that's what I was proposing. So if there's not a link in there, if there is a TLA of some sort, then the QA is going to produce a thing, right? An object, which is going to be considered by the, which is going to be put inside the pool. So you've got an idea, and you're going to have, well, okay, no. Let me backtrack. Either we've got two choices. Either we have the idea as written and comments against it, or comments against it are already implemented in the idea, and so you have one document. We haven't thought about this before. So the QA, I would say QA is there as the second one. It's a commentary against this. It's like what we don't want is QA is not an editor.
No.
QA is look in this area. This is a bit fuzzy. What do you mean by IPLD schema and so on? But is not forcing the idea to be updated. It's a commentary. And like overall, with this commentary and this idea, are we going to allow this as a player to be in? And then someone coding the art can look through it. So, yeah.
And it's really not. It's deeper than are we going to allow this in. It's the reason why we would allow it in is are we going to be able to pass or fail anyone who makes us who pushes a solution against this idea? Do we know enough about this idea to be able to definitively say you missed the mark?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So what we don't want to be in the business of, and our QA doesn't want to be in the business of, is editing ideas.
No, if you have not provided links, and like we can say you should probably put some links in there, but we know what you mean. It's sort of like you're not going to get as many buyers as you might if you had a well presented, well laid out plain document.
Precisely.
QA can still have enough to work with on that,
Yeah. And then what if I was really wanting to get funded, I'd look at the report from the QA and go, oh yeah, okay, fair enough. Or I disagree with this.
But I mean, like the report, it's not going to be a report. I don't imagine. It would be a discussion. I don't want to sit there as QA writing documents, going back and forth. I want to like talk to the guy and be like, "Hey, man, this and that, and what does this thing mean?" Like, and then I get what you mean now because it's kind of about the documents are not the understanding. The understanding exists between people's brains, and if I feel connection with an idea proposer, and I am convinced that he passed the Turing test, I convince him that I passed the Turing test. We're like a intelligence and not the artificial kind. Then that's a good.
That's exactly the point. Well, what we're trying, again, back to the information gradient. What we're trying to do is to even that out, right? So what the QA are doing is giving a heads up in both directions, saying, okay, because ideally you've got a request and an idea, and a third document is, as you say, an interchange saying, I don't think this idea has really got the idea of what the request is asking for. And by the way, that request is asking for, the idea that's being presented. I'm not entirely sure you've got that down pat. So it's like a trusted advisor role.
Yeah,
between a request and idea. But what you do not want to be in is, and we've never been in this situation, never even considered it, is in editing someone else's idea or someone else's request, which is the whole point of Dust.
Yeah,
the whole point of Dust is like, put out any old shit you want.
Yeah.
But if you want to be in a pool, all the pool means is a QA has gone saying,
Yeah.
okay, here's a request, here's an idea. You guys, you're kind of missing the point on this point, and you're being a bit,
It's the QA's job is merely about understanding. It's like this idea lays out something that would be an increase in intellectual value for the world if it was made. And I now feel like we have enough understanding that if we came to war or conflict over it, the QA now understands enough to say yes or no to did that pass and release the escrow, or did that not pass and release the escrow.
And again, just for the stream, because we've gone through this so many times.
Just say it. Just don't.
The reason for that is everyone's agreed to the DPL and the modules and the contract and saying, look, I've got a request, you've got an idea, here's a QA, the QA is the arbiter, I'm putting escrow in. Escrow is going to be released if QA thinks and you don't have to deal with any of that additional cost, that overhead of and our new Hong Kong friend was telling me this at great length, taking far longer to write the contract to have a website built than actually it took the website built, and far more expensive as well. It's just ludicrous. But then we get all the downstream benefits of reuse and so on.
And plus because the packets are fixed price up front first, like sort of what your legal bill is going to be. Just put like half of that in to packet and see what you get. I mean, if it doesn't deliver,
you don't pay. If it doesn't deliver, then what you've lost, the only thing you've lost is time.
So what else needs to change then in this in I21?
So I would like to spend today in thinking more and writing more by tomorrow, if you're available. Writing this out as that commentary against the R24 and I21 and see if that works. So what we were talking about before. So we got the request, we got the idea, and what the QA is pointing out is where there's information gradient, where the information gradient is too high, and not.
You're gonna need a tool to do that.
I hate line text. I just like text.
Well, how am I? Are you going to give me a poorly formatted document like what I got before, or what? What am I going to get?
Okay, we can use Google Docs. We can use Google Docs.
No. Because the thing is, in GitHub pull requests, you can actually go through line by line and leave comments on each line.
Okay, all right.
But I don't know how to do that if you're not actually submitting a code difference. Anyway, why don't you do it your way? We'll see how we go.
Yeah. All right. This is going to be horrible, messy, shitty. A bit like
So I'll go through those other things. My list of to-dos at the top of the document and make those changes. There's nothing else to point out on this call that you want changed in that?
No, remembering that actually what I was trying to do here is actually getting the for real QA process in for if as we said 2 days ago when I was in the middle of COVID, you guys could just go ahead and do this. I'm not adding anything to this. But what what I'm trying to do is to get the QA process sorted
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. So we wanna actually have legitimate agreement on this packet being in the pool. That's what
Right.
I want from you.
We've got like two guys skilled in the art and one, friendly, buyer. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, so
So,
let's take the example
yeah.
to get the process right. Okay, so there's nothing else on I21 that you want to bring up now. You want to take the time to read through it now that you have had clarification on the limits of the responsibilities of QA, and you want to go
Yes.
through it in that sense, right?
Not only the limits, but the it's kind of it's the what the fuck QA. I mean, what's the benefit?
The purpose of
Not the
QA.
limits, what the benefit? Why would you? Because QA is going to take a slice of this as a contribution.
Yeah.
Why would anyone agree with that? That's what I'm going to be working on. It's like, what's the benefit of it? And what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to try and format something up that's going to be useful. That you as now, I assume that you wrote the request and the idea.
No, Rex wrote the idea. I wrote the request.
Brilliant. That's even better. So I'll write a QA response and then put it over to both of you and see if it's useful. And that's the question that I'm looking to have answered. Is that helpful? Not whether the detail is correct and so on, but whether the thing that I sent over is helpful in terms of giving confidence to the buyer, saying, yeah, we've done due diligence on this, and now we've got a packet that's well formed, and
Well
when
formed
it's
has
done,
passed QA, and it's almost like a good signal that you see QA with some pickups and some issues, because it says, well, at least the packet that describes that the idea describes has had some quality improvements made to it by some people who are skilled in the art, for lack of a better term.
are thick as shit. Yeah, exactly. And the second thing,
that's value, right? Like, that's value add.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how many think it's 50% of people are below average intelligence. But the second thing that we've got is, and not yet, is the exit QA. It's the escrow release. But I'm not going to deal with that yet. We'll come to that.
Yeah, we got that. So the window of time for the escrow has been set at 3 months.
Right. Okay, so let's get this intro or the acceptance QA, which gives a kind of stamp of approval, sorted out over the next couple of days, and and then after that we can worry about the exit. And on that, fucking hell, it sounds like we're actually doing real work. I love that. That's really good.
That's really good. It's starting to do what I want it to do, which is very clearly defined incremental value enhancements.
Now, yes, but the thing that this conversation has at the back of my head given me a worry, I won't give a solution, I just voice it, is QA can possibly, or could possibly, depending on it, because it's not just going to be us, we're going to open this up, could turn into just another bunch of lawyers.
No, sir, you are wrong.
We have to avoid that.
You are
the
wrong.
Possibilities. Okay. I mean, where we were on.
You're wrong, because the pool and the software that runs the pool is open to be forked by anyone. Anytime the pool process becomes too molasses-like, anytime QA consumes more than what the value it produces, there's an instant violent ejection button that dumps the whole ugly pile on the sidewalk and moves on. And that is continuous improvement. That is continuous reinvigoration and just unceremonious ejection of any parasitic forces in the process.
I get what you say, and I am I'm an Adam Smithian through and through, and it should happen. But it's something that needs to be actively watched out for.
It's the market that decides how much YOLO-ness the pool has. There's the balance that you and I need to be cautious of is to make sure that we always allow enough of that cowboy attitude for speed. I think the real thing you're worried about is you should not become another lawyer too afraid to just say, yeah, I get it, or sure, go right ahead, fellas. Like that's probably more accurately what you're afraid of. The pool will move on without us.
That is both insulting and correct. The thing in the back of my head is, well, effectively, you and I are the first QA, but you are you're deep in. Well, you wrote the request, right? So you were involved. So I'm the only disinterested QA of this. So we're bootstrapping ourselves up. So the reason I'm both insulted and saying you're correct is what I'm trying to do is to not get too lawyerish, but not get too sloppy that you could get away with murder.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like the value enhancements occur because of the lack of slop, because you've driven out sloppiness and increased fidelity in the system. If you try and increase fidelity too much, you end up with nothing because you just squeezed all the spark out of the system. But that's what this machine was designed to do, is to automatically find that balance.
Yeah. And once you get that trust, then you get great things happening. If you don't have that trust, then you get either large specs or large contracts.
Yeah, and we want a network of trustworthy, innovative people that all believe that they're dealing with someone who passed the Turing test on the other end, and they're like they know when to be explicit and they know when to trust, and that is speed, man. That should be this explosive swarm-like ability to solve problems at a rate that all these specs just ain't solving.
Yeah, exactly. Right, okay, so I'm gonna have to go, but to summarize, by tomorrow, are you available tomorrow?
No.
When are you next available? Perhaps. Okay, right. Ping me if you are or are not. In the meantime, I'm going to work on what a QA response to those R24 and I21 would be, given our conversation today, to try and make it as useful as helpful and as productive as possible.
That sounds good. I'll make those changes to the document as well.
Yep. Cool. Nice one.
Can you you got to go, or do you have another 20 minutes? Do you have any extra time?
I do have all the time, but can I just go and check on Jude, because she just came through all super excited and so on.
No worries.
Right. I've just said him. How long do you reckon? Right, 3 minutes, and I'll be back.
Okay.
The reason is Duncan's done exceptionally well in his
You're taking
exam.
time. You're taking time. 3 minutes. I'll see you.
Yeah. Might be 4. I'm not actually in charge of the minute number.
You don't have the watch. Someone else's watch.
Yeah, well, I have the watch, but it's not exactly down to me. Well, I'll be back as soon as.
Okay.
Well, it's just Okay, back.
All right.
Yeah, sorry about that. The grades for his exams came out today. She was very excited.
Okay. I have 10 minutes, and I would like to talk to you about public listing.
Okay, let's do it.
I have a meeting coming up on Tuesday morning with the CSE.
Okay.
I'm wondering, what is the purpose of our company, the publicly listed company? What should its motivation be?
Okay. Can I go one up from there? Is why CSE when well, what are we listing? Dreamcatcher Limited, right? Or some other body?
I think the company would be called Dreamcatcher Platform Limited. Gateway
Okay, so
Gateway would never be listed.
Right. Okay. Okay. Good. All right.
Because
Okay,
Gateway
so-
doesn't claim a profit.
Yeah. Okay. What is the purpose?
Well, why don't we start with why I think there should be a public company?
Yes, please do, because I haven't thought about this at all until you mentioned it 30 seconds ago.
We are making packets that have a possible future royalty payment. They require some funding, and to operate in the Dreamcatcher network, you must be a participant. You cannot be an investor.
Yes. Yep.
We know that there is significant interest for people to become investors in the activity that we're undertaking. People love this idea, but they don't want to participate in it. They want to just put some money in it and let us go off and make money with it.
Right.
At the same time, we need funding, but I don't like private raising because it feels untransparent. So
by definition, transparent.
Yeah. And then at the same time, you and I have a wealth of experience of running public companies, particularly how not to run them, which is experience. Okay.
Do we have to show the scars as well?
Yeah, well, some of them still haven't healed. But the point is that we know the ills of a public company.
Yeah.
And what appears to be available to do is to make a clean virgin listing on the CSE. We pick the board, we pick the exec. There's a few conditions in terms of like we need some public shareholders, but they need not be very high. You know, it can be 20% of the company is truly public. The rest can be tightly held.
Or it could be Sophie putting in, you know, a quid and a dollar, you know. The volume doesn't actually matter.
Yeah. Okay, right. Yeah. And then at the same time, we're building what appears to be a platform, where it's a platform for the construction of software and at the same time the management of company concerns of all kinds, equity, funding, advertisement, requirements gathering, quality control, labor sourcing, biomanagement, payment processing. Like that's a platform. And
so go ahead. I got a question, but go ahead.
At the same time, we want to be fully transparent as an operating entity. And so we could combine all those things and using the CSE, we could be a genuine, fully transparent, real-time transparent public company listed on the CSE that has 0 employees, that has every expense public at the instant it's incurred, that uses the Dreamcatcher labor markets for all of its services. A place where that company can expend funds to build packets, and whilst the packets may not be able to be freely traded due to SEC regulations, the value of those packets can be gambled on, and the valuation of that company's shares as a proxy for that collection of packets can certainly be traded. And that's it. That's why.
Okay, right. So the question that I had about 6 seconds ago, are we talking about floating a pool or floating the whole shebang, as it were?
We're not even floating a pool. We're floating a single actor, a power user within the network that acts as a funder within any pools it pleases.
Right. Okay, good. Yes. Can I ask you your patience? I don't know anything about the CSE rules. I know quite a lot about the FTSE rules, but I don't know.
Pretty much the same as the TSXV rules.
Right. Okay. Right. And there's also the CSE in the UK. There's a thing called AIM, Alternative Investments Market. Is there a similar market?
This is the alternative. The CSE is like
So this is the AIM.
Yeah.
As in this is AIM. All right. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I like the Canadian market because I know it. We know it.
Yeah. Although I can't actually get in. Not for
doesn't seem to matter. And so what I'm thinking of proposing is to undertake this listing.
Yep.
And check with this guy if it's okay to do, but to be fully transparent right from the start. In fact, being transparent about even our communications with the CSE the whole way down the line. using the Dreamcatcher network to source our legal services, where they are treated as packets that can be reused.
Right.
Basically, run the whole thing as Dreamcatcher through the network, right from the word go. And then I'm thinking, like, you know, we got to raise at least about 200K to be able to list on that market. That doesn't seem like a terribly large sum to find amongst all the people we know, particularly because they're not getting private company shares. They're getting like, hey, here's some public company stock in a virgin listing. Like, no bullshit, no hangers on, no anything. This is,
and it'd be a great signal if we can't get 200K. We'd have to go, fuck.
Yeah,
something's gone wrong.
So
yeah,
and as you say, like, you know, to start fully transparent right from the outset is so much easier than trying to pivot to be transparent, because that secrecy is like a cancer. Like, we saw it. There's more secrecy in a public company than I've seen anywhere else on earth. And
yes, and without naming, you know, anything, some of the press releases, it would make you blush.
I know, right? That'd be funny to read through them again.
Let's not do that.
But my point is that, you know, being fully transparent, like actually genuinely fully transparent right from the get-go, plus, like, because this is just an actor in the network, the success of the Dreamcatcher doesn't hinge on this device. This thing can flop. The Dreamcatcher is still there. We can just walk away and try it again a different way. The network's still there. The software's still there.
Yes, that's
All
true.
the
That's
work
true.
that the company does is still going to be good, even if the thing completely tanks. At worst, we'll have a bunch of software, a whole lot more knowledge. It'll all be preserved and reusable and instantly accessible to us or anyone else in the future. And we'll have a shell sitting there that we can do something with. You know, like this. Right.
Yeah, you've now only got 4 minutes left.
0 minutes.
0 minutes. All right. Okay. Very quickly. My only concern is, and I'll do my own research. You don't have to answer this one. Is in terms of the precedence of giving up information. Now, up to this point, well, we are streaming now for anyone who gives a shit. You know, you could watch everything we've said today on YouTube. But is there necessarily going to be restrictions on telling the market first?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to find out. I'm like, how do you press release if you're continually in real time, everything is published? So that's what I got to find out. And, you know, do we have to give a summary within 5 days if it's something material, that sort of thing? The other types of rules and conditions that I'm considering is that everyone who's a shareholder, or either from a founding perspective or from an investment perspective, has to put their stock in a pool, and the pool is traded as one unit, so that you can't have, you know, you can't, right? Well, you can't get one shareholder trying to tank the stock price and then a bunch of people suspicious about who it is, you know. So I don't know if you're allowed to bond your stock in a pool.
Oh, you mean transparency on who's pumping and dumping?
Yeah, right. So it's like for example, if two major shareholders, right, it has to be controlled by a pool, and the pool has goals, right? The goal is to smooth the price. So it's sort of like, if we think the company is overvalued, we're selling stock and it's turning into cash. And if we think the company's undervalued, we're buying the stock back. But the point is that as a team of shareholders, we are agreeing to act in unison with our stock.
Yeah.
And I don't know if
Yeah.
that's allowed, right? But that's sort of what I'm saying. I'm like, yes, we are independent shareholders, but one of the conditions of being allowed to enter as a private placement or an investment is this: you got to be part of this pool. You can't just sell your stock anytime you please.
Oh, in the UK, that would just be part of the Articles of Association. But I don't know about the CAC.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
that's where I'm at with that. Please have a think
let me
about
do
it.
my homework on that one. I'll be more informed next time we talk.
All right, I sent you an email that has a lot of good information about it that answered my first round of questions.
Right. Okay. All right. And you're not available tomorrow. You may be available the next day. Ping me if you are.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? I continue to be available, and I've no longer got COVID. Hey.
Hey, nice.
Yeah. It was shit. It was shit. I hate it. But yeah. Looking forward to monkey flu.
Done.
Whoops.